Good evening, and you're welcome to today's Power with Jumoke version or edition 20. So this is our 20th time of meeting like this. And today we'll be having this interesting conversation on effective communication management. I am intentional about choice of topic so that it will be relevant for those that are preparing to write their PMP exam, and for those that are already certified to serve as refresher and form of knowledge sharing that would merit PDUs. So you're welcome to today's session. This is the outline of today's presentation. We are going to look at what we are going to learn after today's episode, introduction to what communication is, the strategic role of communication in projects, communication methods, frequency, tone, and delivery tools that you would require to know about in communication management, the importance of you monitoring and adjusting based on stakeholder feedback is essential. Then I will touch a few exam traps and tips, and then we have 7 questions to practice or assess knowledge as a form of knowledge check. This is a keyword that I would advise you to please scan if you are interested in getting PDUs and you respond to me today, because I compiled the list today. So what you will be sending me will be your name, first name, last name, and your PMI ID, not your PMP or ACP or RMP ID, but your Project Management Institute membership ID. Having said that, let's roll. So by the end of this session, you will be able to identify and apply communication methods such as push, pull, and interactive appropriately. You will be able to determine suitable frequency, tone, and delivery tools for stakeholder communications. You will be able to monitor, evaluate, and adjust communication strategies based on feedback, and also avoid common PMP exam traps related to communications planning and stakeholder engagement. So let's do this. So let's look at introduction. Communication is not just about sending information. Sometimes I hear people talk, and when they are done, they could have spoken for like 10 minutes. And I ask myself, so what did he or she say? They've gone round. If they're giving instruction, the instruction is not precise, and it gives room for assumptions and wrong conclusions. So it is not just about sending information. It is about ensuring understanding and driving alignment. So if you're a project manager, when you're writing PMP exam, you are to assume that you're a project manager, okay, and you're taking leadership position. So when you are communicating, you want to ensure that the people or the individual you are communicating with understands, and you drive alignment with the focus or the objective of the project, which must align to the organizational objective or the strategy. So why do we communicate? What is the purpose of communication? Is to enable us plan, manage, and monitor communication so that the right message reaches the right audience in the right way at the right time. So you could have the right message, but you may have wrong audience. You may have the right audience, but have wrong message. And you may have the right message, you may have the right audience, but you have no skill in communicating. So I tell people communication is a skill that you need to develop. The more you put it to use, the better you become. And then you'll be able to know the right time to deliver what information to the right audience. Why does it matter for you to know the right message, for you to know the right audience, for you to know the right way to communicate and the right time? Why does it matter? It's because you, as a project manager, what you do is 90% communication. And effective communication builds trust, clarity, and engagement. If you do not communicate effectively, there will be disengagement. People can't even wait for you to be done. So it's essential to communicate effectively. Effective communication will mean you have the right message, you have the right audience, and you are communicating the right way at the right time. That's what we would summarize as effective communication. So miscommunication is a leading cause of project failure. When I started hearing, I thought, I assumed, but you said, okay. Now, there are key concepts when it comes to communication, especially with PMP focus. One, there are methods that you need to use to communicate. We have push, we have pull, and we have interactive. All right. And then you need to tailor the frequency. How often would you communicate with this stakeholder, with that stakeholder, and the tone to use, as well as the tools that you need to use to communicate to your stakeholders. And you need to continuously monitor and adjust using feedback loops. So when you communicate, you want to hear feedback. One, for you to know whether there is clarity. Two, to see how you can adjust or improve. Because when it comes to project management, continuous improvement is key. Now, when you are writing the exam, you should have this mindset. Think like a leader. So communication is a strategic enabler. It's not an administrative task. That's okay. We have reports. Okay, go and give it to the secretary. No, it's a strategic enabler. When you communicate well, it opens doors. You get to know the understanding of your team members. It enables you to know if there is need to correct an impression, or if there is conflict or some build-up tension. So as a project manager, and as you're going to write your PMP, you should see or take communication as a strategic tool, or and that enhances an enabling environment for you to be able to achieve the purpose of the project. Now, the strategic role of communication in projects, as we said earlier, according to PMI, what you do as a project manager is 90%. So if you want to quantify everything that you do, you spend 90% on communication. So you need to ensure that your communication is effective. Effective communication would ensure alignment on objectives, deliverables, and expectations. One of the areas we fail as project managers is our inability to manage our stakeholders, or our project team members' expectations. And often this happens because we don't allow them to talk. You don't even know what they have in mind. I tell people, the fact that you listen doesn't mean you're going to do what they are saying. It doesn't mean you just, okay, let me listen, I won't do it. No. But then it helps you to understand the thought process of your team members, of your stakeholders, and then you can address it. It's like when you want to define or plan scope. When you are planning scope, you will state what the project will deliver and what it will not deliver. How do you get what the project will not deliver? It is from when you elicit or collect requirements from stakeholders. So if you do not do that, and you start in the office and say, this project, you should do this, you should do that, without engaging the right stakeholders, you will not be able to define appropriately what the project will not be delivering. So effective communication would help you to align the objective of the project deliverables, as well as expectations of your stakeholders, to what the project is set out to achieve, which at the end of the day will be answering to the organization's strategic alignment. Two, effective communication would ensure engagement and buy-in from stakeholders. But sometimes we work on projects, you can tell you are not the best friend of one of the stakeholders, but because there is engagement, there is information, proactive information. Sometimes we provide information, but it's after the damage has been caused. Then we now try to, but if you are proactive and you give the information, if I tell people, when you are communicating, you should be answering questions that people have not asked. So you are thinking ahead if I were to be in their shoes, what would I want to know? And you provide that information. It makes people trust you and see you as a trustworthy person. So effective communication ensures engagement and buy-in from your stakeholders. It also displays transparency. You know, they will be able to tell exactly where the progress is. If there are risks, you state it. If there are issues, if there are risks that have turned into issues, you state it. And transparency also foster unity and trust. Okay. The fourth reason why effective communication is important is it helps in preventing conflicts. It also helps in resolving conflict, because when you do this, it creates a psychosocial environment where your team members are comfortable, that they are comfortable to be themselves, that they will not be judged, and if they have issues, they know that they would have answers to their challenges. So your ability to be able to communicate effectively would ensure these things. Now, let's look at ways or methods that we can communicate. There are three: push, pull, and interactive. This slide will look at push communication. When we say push, from the word push, it means the person or the one that is sending the message or the encoder chooses to send message. And so information is sent to recipients who need to receive it. So it means you, the project manager or the team leader, will decide based on probably your team charter or some documentation. You will know, or stakeholder register as well. You will know who is to receive what information at what time. So you pick maybe your telephone, or you send email, or you draft memo, or you send report, or you prepare newsletters or meeting minutes. You send it. So you've pushed the information to the recipient. When is it appropriate to use push communication? You can have a scenario like this drawn in a question. So you should know when push communication is appropriate. It is appropriate when information has to be delivered, but immediate feedback is not required. So sometimes when people need maybe an information urgently and they send email, it usually, especially if it's on a weekend, let's say Friday, 4:30, when people have already zoomed out, and you don't follow up with a call or a text message for them to check their email, then it makes me wonder how urgent really the information is. So you use push when there is no pressure, for immediate feedback, or when stakeholders have low engagement or low influence. Remember, when you have your stakeholders identified in the stakeholder register, you are going to analyze them. You are going to use this grid, power influence or power interest grid, and then you'll be able to assess and know which of them have low interest or low influence or low power. For those stakeholders, you will not be communicating with them frequently as you would stakeholders that have high power or high influence or high interest in the project. So you use push communication method in communicating to stakeholders that have low engagement, maybe power, influence, interest in the project. Okay. Now watch out for this PMP trap. Do not assume push means effective. That push communication means it is the most effective of the methods. If stakeholders don't read it, your communication has failed. I don't know, maybe you have experienced sending emails, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, someone can tell you that I've never sent this before. I sent you an email. No, I didn't receive email. Okay, search. And they will realize that they have it. So at that moment, that information is alien. And if there were instructions, the recipient would have missed it. So if your emails or memos are not read, your reports are not read, your newsletters are not read, or meeting minutes are not read for people to know that they are responsible for some action points, it means that communication has failed. So this is push communication. Now let's look at pull communication. This is where information is stored and retrieved by stakeholders when they need it. Like today's session, we record all the power session with Jumoke and we upload on YouTube because we know that not everybody would be able to make it to attend. So let's say you attended, but you didn't attend early, you missed a portion, and we shared the link that this session has been uploaded on YouTube and you didn't watch it. Putting this information on YouTube makes it a poor communication for when people will need it. But then it becomes relevant or useful when people that will need it actually go there to retrieve it. And so in organizations, you have repositories as well, or you want to do an e-course that they give you a 3 months validity period and you keep procrastinating. After the 3rd month, maybe you have to pay or you don't even have access to it at all. So that is how pull communication is. You will have the information stored for you to retrieve when you need it. An example of pull communication is intranet portals, knowledge repositories, dashboards, databases. Like I have a platform for my simulator. When I assign simulator to my students, I have a dashboard that I can see what they are doing. I can tell those that are, if the way you answer the questions, I can tell that you were not really ready to answer those questions, or you were not concentrating. So dashboard is also a platform. So if I don't go to the dashboard to view what my students are doing, the information is as good as not being there, because then I will not be able to support them. I will not be able to say, this area you need improvement, that area you need improvement. So those that need the information must do the due diligence to access or retrieve the information. I intentionally or deliberately included examples to help, so please pay attention to them. When is it appropriate to use pool communication method? When you have large audience or volume of information, you use it so that they can go and retrieve, especially if maybe you can't have a virtual meeting, you can upload and share the link or make the link available for the audience. You can also use pull communication for stakeholders that need to access on demand. When you go for conferences, often the presentations are loaded on a repository and you are given access to be able to access them. So you can use pull communication for a situation where stakeholders can access the information on demand as at when they need it. Now, watch out for this tip. Use pull when information is voluminous or stakeholders are self-driven. So if you have, in fact, this will be useful for adaptive team because they are self-driven, they are self-organized, so they know that I need this. Let me go and take it. It's not that, have you gone? So you can't use it for people that are not self-driven. The third but not the least, interactive communication method. This is two-way exchange of information. In fact, telephone call can tend to become interactive, especially if you're going to have conversation and you schedule it. Let's have a call 2 p.m. So I also have opportunity to think about what you are going to talk about. But if you called me and we had no prior arrangement, you have had time to process what you want to talk about. And that's why sometimes you hear people say, let me get back to you, because they have not had time. In that instance, it will be a push communication. But in a situation where you both plan and you schedule a time and then you make the call, it's going to be a two-way interchange because you'll be able to also give your thoughts. So two-way interactive communication is a two-way exchange of information in real time. So that's, but I have a saying, I tell people, your lack of planning does not constitute an emergency for me. So usually interactive communication like telephone call, is for when you need to have response almost immediately. It could be meetings, it could be calls, it could be video conferences, it could be instant chat and workshop. In fact, sometimes when you send chats, let's say WhatsApp chat, and you need immediate response, you add like a call. It could be just a flash to alert the other person at the other end to respond. So when is it appropriate to use interactive communication? When dialogue and feedback are critical, where you don't want to assume what the other party would say or may say. It is also appropriate or useful when collaboration and decision-making are required. If you did a push, you may not even be there for the person to give feedback and make decision, or for collaboration. It will always be, I'll come and meet it and interpret it with my numerous biases, and you will not even be there to verify that, yes, what you are thinking or your understanding is right or wrong. So interactive gives that opportunity to say, okay, excuse me, is my understanding of what you just said is ABCD. Is that right? Then you can say, oh, yes, exactly. Or no, that's not. Now, this is another tip. In exam questions, when stakeholders disagree or misunderstanding exists, please use interactive over push or pull. You see, when there are disagreements, in fact, even when you are chatting and there is, what do you mean? And there is back and forth, call. Because sometimes some people will say, and she responded and say, what? When people say that, I'm like, was it chat or call? They will say it's chat. I said, so how did you know the person say what? It means you have added, your own maybe experience, or some people will say, oh, I've known the person, I'm sure this is how the person did. But if there's back and forth, please call, because sometimes the tone at which you are reading text may not be the tone the sender actually has in mind. So when there is conflict, avoid push or pull method, go for interactive. Now let's talk about frequency of communication, tone of communication, and delivery tool. There are 3 slides on this. 1, frequency. This is determined by your communication requirement analysis. When you first identify stakeholders and you had the register and you did your analysis based on power, influence, interest, those with high power, high influence, high interest, you know that you'll be communicating with them more frequently than those with the low lows, and that would have been specified in your communication management plan. All right. That would also influence who you would assign among your team members to who, and your team members' temperament, experience also counts in who you assign them to manage. You can't assign someone that is an introvert, that is not that skillful, to go and you assign such to your key stakeholder. No. Yeah. So the frequency that, okay, reports will be sent once every week, or 2 times in a week, or 3 times in a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, by 12 noon would have been specified in the communication management plan. And that is what will determine the frequency of communication. What you should factor in this frequency is the project complexity. If a project is complex, you cannot be waiting 2 months before you communicate. Stakeholder interest and influence. If you have stakeholders with high interest and influence, you will communicate more, like your sponsor, project sponsor. You cannot say, but you give us the money. If we are not saying anything, then you should know that everything is going on well. Hey, no, you have to communicate to avoid assumption. Now, the phase or project life cycle also will determine the frequency. If you are using adaptive methodology, there will be schedule, maybe based on timeline, based on milestones. Like at the completion of every milestone, you give updates or report. But if you're using adaptive, it's not going to be that. It could be by iteration, during iteration, where the product backlog can always be populated and then reprioritized at the end of your iteration, so that you can pick the prioritized user story or or features or epics. Okay, so the type of project life cycle would determine the frequency, will have an impact on the frequency of communication. It also depends on information sensitivity. Depends on information sensitivity on how frequently you would communicate with your stakeholders. Now, examples. If you have daily stand-up meetings, it's a form of communication, because what you do there, you will state what you did yesterday, what you will do today, and if there are challenges, you will state it there. And this is done daily. If you have, if it is predictive, you may have weekly progress reports. And sometimes people feel, oh, it's not important, but what are we going to say there? It's a form of communication, and it keeps your stakeholders at peace because they can tell what is going on. And it could be monthly steering committee updates where you are telling, based on the project governance structure, you're also giving them updates. Now, this is also a tip. Don't fix a one-size-fits-all schedule. That's okay, it's going to be every 2 months, and that is it. Tailor frequency based on stakeholder needs. Needs of your stakeholders may change. So when you are reading question, when you are answering any PMI certification questions, be looking at giving value to the stakeholder. Be looking at engaging the stakeholder to assure, to make the stakeholder have trust in you, a win-win situation, value delivery. So if you have a one-size-fits-all, it means if the stakeholder came and say, okay, earlier I said we'll be giving me updates every 2 months, but now I want a report every month. You could go like, hello, at the beginning we agreed on 2 months and we are not changing that. But as a project manager that is following PMI's principle, you will listen, meet with your team, and revise the communication, because then the communication need of this stakeholder, especially if it's one of the key stakeholders with high interest, high influence, high power, you have to listen. You have to listen. Yeah. So it's not your preference as project manager. Do you know the years I've been working? No, it's not about you. Hello. Now, the tone. Tone reflects professionalism, empathy, and cultural sensitivity. I tell people, never, ever write email when you are angry. Never call when you are angry. The worst you can do, you can send voice note to yourself. Sometimes you want to rant, and if you say it, you feel better. Or send email to yourself. Type your anger, whatever you want to say, and send it to yourself. For me, I have discovered that my best time is in the morning. So let's say somebody takes me off the wrong way in the afternoon or evening. If I feel like responding, like when I say send the email to yourself, it's because I do it. I'll leave it. Then in the morning, at that point, I am able to be objective, and not being emotional. I'll be able to be objective, right? Sit down, try to read the email from a neutral perspective, and before I send it. And so sometimes I see emails I wrote 2015, 2011, and I realize I've not changed much. And sometimes when I see those emails, I would remember how angry I was, but God helped me to contain myself. So never, you will lose your professionalism, you will lose empathy, and you will lose your cultural sensitivity. I tell people, this is Africa. And in fact, sometimes when people say, oh, no, it's okay, call me by my first name, if I look at the gap, I will still not call you by your first name because we are Africans. If I can't call you uncle, I will add Mr. So the tone of your communication with your stakeholders must reflect professionalism. And sometimes attending meetings, sitting in meetings would help you realize that, okay, I need to grow myself in this way. And empathy is you attempting to put yourself in other people's shoes. And that is where the emotional intelligence comes in. An example of tone is a risk escalation email. There's a risk. You've identified a risk. and you want to escalate it, maybe you are the project manager, you want to escalate it to your program manager. The email should be factual. This, we have identified that this may result to this. It may, if this risk occurred, we may have to spend 50% of the current project cost. But we are looking at possible solution, because you would have had some preliminary conversation. And if you have not, and I am willing to sit with you, sir, to see how we can resolve this, it should not include, it was Jumoke that didn't close the door. That was why Rat entered. No, because as a project manager, you take ownership, you take responsibility for your team. When you are with your team, you can decide to remove shit and box. But when you have to escalate, escalation means this person is out of your project team. You have to own it. And it should not be based on, I'm thinking, I feel. No. That's why it must be factual. Exam tip: match the tool to the method that you will use in addressing your stakeholder need. And that is why it's not like a formula that when it is like this is what you must do. You must look at the variables, the stakeholder need, the urgency of the message and all that, for you to be able to decide that, okay, it's going to be push, it's going to be pull, or it's going to be interactive. Now, when it comes to how you are going to deliver the information, I put this table together, and I realized when I was doing this, I realized that synchronous, asynchronous, I don't even see it in the pinball guide or in the training slides that we are giving as ATPs. Synchronous would help you to give room for real-time dialogue, especially if you have to make decisions or there's conflict. So you can use meetings. If we are using Zoom like what we are using, it's a real-time opportunity of platform for you to be able to say, oh, Jumoke, you said this, I hear you, but you actually got it wrong. Yeah. Also, our teams. Asynchronous is like a pull communication method. Email, where there's room for Slack, you don't need to respond urgently. Reports, So it is when you have a situation that does not warrant immediate response. Then you can use visual tools, which is important. It makes communication easier. That's dashboards, Gantt chart, for those of us who use MS Project. It simplifies data. It makes it relatable. That's why I tell people, when you want to present your project update, go and write some PDF, 25, 27 pages. Can use just one slide by using shapes, to present, and colors to present your updates. And then the collaborative tool is supposed to be tool, Jira, Trello, MS Project. It gives transparency. Dashboards or whiteboard, where you are able to have these 3 columns to do, doing, and done. It makes it so clear. You can use the same whiteboard for risk identification. And once you have identified risk and you prioritize risk based on the probability and impact, you can still use the whiteboard. It encourages collaboration. Please match the tool to the same tip. Match the tool you will use and the method to your stakeholder need, because PMI will test appropriateness of the tool that you are using. Now, you've identified, or you have the different methods. You have assigned that, okay, for this, I'm going to use push, for this, I'm going to use pull, for this, I'm going to use interactive. You need to monitor and adjust based on the feedback that you have from your stakeholder. So you cannot say, this is what we plan and this is what is in the communication management plan. You must be willing to change. I'm talking to you as project managers, and that is how you are supposed to be thinking when you are answering questions. So effective communication is iterative. It means it's an unending cycle. Okay, You plan, you deliver, you plan again, so that there's continuous improvement. Like you should have growth mindset. So it's not static. PMI's expectation of you as you're preparing for the exam as project manager is that there should be, you should collect feedback. You should collect feedback. Whatever you have designed to use, you should check through surveys, through informal checking. Okay, so yesterday, the report I presented, what are your thoughts about it? And then you can also use retrospectives. In fact, one of the reasons for retrospectives is to improve on your next job or your next iteration or your next phase or your next project, because you are identifying what worked well. Why do you need to know what worked well? To be able to replicate it, to be able to do it again. And then what did not work well that requires improvement? Why do you need to know that? You don't want to repeat that error in your next phase or in the next similar project or in your next iteration. So collect feedback. If you're a parent on this call, collect feedback from your children. What do I do that you like? What do I do that you don't like? What do I do that you want me to do more of? What do I do that you want me to reduce? 2, as project managers, PMI expects you to analyze effectiveness of your communication and its method. So did my stakeholder understand what I said? Or you are just talking, you are not concerned about the understanding? And okay, so you have communicated decision to your stakeholder. The decisions, were they accepted? Were they in support of the decision, or they have different opinion? You need to analyze the effectiveness of your method and the information. Then you adjust your strategy based on if your stakeholder says, it's like sometimes when you want to have virtual meetings, I do it. I will just draw a poll. Which one are you comfortable with, Zoom or Teams? I have both. I can use both, but you don't just assume everybody can use it. So you will go for the one that is that wins, okay, like consensus. Pick the one that has the most votes. So you can adjust your strategy, change your channel, change your format, for 18th time, the way I did the power session with Jumoke was to make presentation the way I am doing. Then at the end, I will give some questions. We'll go through it, you answer, then I will give room for questions. But the last weeks, it was not like that. It was an open forum for those that were on the call to ask questions, because I am the one using my discretion based on what I train when it comes to PMP. I'm following it. But I felt people may have other needs, and that was what happened. People were asking questions about the number of questions for the exam, how to prepare, what to do, and all that. So it was for me to make what I do relevant. It is true it's a free session, but how I will get satisfaction or payback for what I do is when it's actually touching lives, helping people to prepare better for their PMP, bringing knowledge to them and all that. And so I had to change. So I'm waiting for people to say, okay, maybe we want more of that, or we want the sequence that you are going. So it's important to adjust your strategy or your plan based on feedback, format, how frequently. Some people are saying I should do it more than once a week. Some people are saying, oh, Juni, the questions, can you give us questions like 20 or 40? Unfortunately, I can't do that. Okay. Or even the messenger. Sometimes the person that is maybe delivering report to one of your stakeholders may be changed. If you have someone that is haughty, gets angry easily, and you know that this stakeholder can ask questions and to the point of irritation, and you have someone that is impatient, hey, have to change you. You have to change that person to people that they are irritated, but they will keep smiling. Yeah. So you may change the messenger as well. Now, example of how you monitor and adjust based on stakeholder feedback. If your weekly status emails are unread, you send mail every week, and then when you meet for meeting, you send the status meeting, sorry, the status reports earlier so that they can read. When you get to meeting, you don't have to now spending time to read, but you realize that you have been doing it. They don't read. When you come for meeting, instead of the 1 hour time box, you end up spending 2 hours. What do? You will switch now. You will switch. You can even have conversation. I have noticed that when I send reports, you don't read it. Can you give suggestion on how to go about it? Some people will say, you know what? You see, you are very busy, but you will bring when you come for meeting, bring the report and just project it, and then we will read it there and give our feedback. So that is one switch. Or you can decide to do 10-minute dashboard review call. So you call and run. When you check the page 1, this is it. You switch to suit your audience. Now, tip for your exam, for those that are going to write exam. Look for options that shows adaptation and responsiveness to feedback. I've seen questions that they will say that don't mind the stakeholder adhere to the communication management plan. No, the project is not about you. It's for your stakeholders, or they have a role to play on it. So you have to adapt and be responsive to feedback. That is an assumption that you are seeking feedback. So you must be seeking feedback from your stakeholders. And this aligns with the PMI or PMP's leadership and agile mindset. Listening, getting feedback from your team members and stakeholders. Now, these are common exam traps. Send an email for every issue. Explanation. Push is not always effective. I said this earlier. The correct mindset is that choose interactive when clarity is needed. 2, ignoring cultural sensitivity. Like you have a question, and in the question you can tell that the question is not being sensitive to your stakeholders or your project team culture. Maybe by tone. It's like if you're in Nigeria and you're a Yoruba, and you're talking to someone that is older, you use "eh." If you're talking to someone that is your age mate or younger than you, you use "o" or "o." That simple thing can create problem. That look at, hey, she's talking to me as if we are age mates. In fact, even how you call people's names. You can call someone's name and the person will go like, what? Were you there when they named me? So your tone is very, very important. So you need, the correct mindset is you need to adjust for cultural and personality styles. I was calling someone uncle. Then somebody came to me and said that, do you know the person doesn't like you calling him uncle? I will not tell you the main reason behind me calling the person uncle. So I changed it to Mr. Because as for me, Jumoke, I will never call that person by name. So I adjusted. You can't get angry because it's your name, Mr. So. So you need to adjust, because at that point it was important for me for the person not to get angry. I was the president of the chapter, and this was one of the key people in the chapter. So you need to adjust for cultural and personality styles. As long as I know that you are older than me, even if I'm calling you by your name, there's a way you can call someone by name, and everyone wants respect too. Don't be misguided to think people don't want respect. If I drove into an office and I saw a security man, the first how I would call that person's uncle, good evening, especially if the person is a little bit elderly, good evening, sir. And you can see how elated they will be. They'll be willing to help you because they expect this respect. Based on how people say, hello, open the gate for me. So please, can you please open the gate for me? Thank you very much, sir. It's to take nothing from you. Over-reporting. Flooding inboxes, is not equal to communication. So focus on relevance and clarity. That's what you should be looking at for. Rigid communication plan. Your plan must evolve. Monitor and adapt as stakeholder needs change. How would you know, especially for predictive, if you are not engaging, if you are not giving room for feedback, you will not know that it has changed for you to even adjust. So be aware and conscious that plans should be evolving. Now, the fifth trap is assuming one stakeholder is equal to one method all through the project. Please, people differ. And even the people, like you may feel A at the beginning of projects, towards the end, it may be something else. So we differ and we also change. So you need to tailor communication per stakeholder. You cannot use the same method for all your stakeholders. And even for a stakeholder, the project is long, because you are receiving feedback, the method for communication may change along the project. So these are key takeaways that I hope you have taken out of what we said. Push, that's when you send communication to others. Pull, when you store the communication for recipients to take or have access. Interactive is when you engage in a method that allows exchange. Sometimes when people use exchange, because we are Africans, we feel it's disrespect. 4, tailor the frequency, how often you would communicate. The tone, say it should be professional, it should be clear, it should be precise, and the delivery tool that you will use to meet your stakeholder needs. And then you need to monitor whatever you have tailored and adapt regularly based on feedback. Your communication success is dependent on understanding the message that was delivered. It's not just, oh, I have sent the email, all right, or I have communicated. So whenever you see words like confusion, misunderstanding, or a stakeholder dissatisfaction, the answer often involves improving communication and collaboration methods, not punishment or escalation. So this is one of my favorite slides. You can do it. I tell my story. I failed PMP at my first sitting because I felt, what is it? I'm an engineer. What the calculations are less than 5%. I mean, what is it? And I manage projects, and my projects have been successful until I failed. And I realized the importance of simulator. And that is why, for me, my students don't have choice whether I want to do exam prep or I don't want to do exam prep. Is collabo. So when you come for my my training, it includes training and simulator of about 1,000 questions. And what I love about my simulator is it's time boxed. It gives you that exam atmosphere. And I start with quizzes, 10 questions each, 12 minutes, 10 questions, 12 minutes. So I want to encourage you, if you have not written the exam and you are anxious that there's a lot of information, what do I do? Please get a simulator. If you have written the exam and you have failed, let what I'm saying encourage you. After all, I failed, but if you talk about instructors of PMP in Ghana and probably in Africa, my name will come up. So you can do it. Now let's look at some practice questions. I have only 7 for you today. So this is what we do. I will display the questions. I'll give you a few seconds to drop your answers in the chat box. We look at it. I'll show you the answer. If it warrants further explanations, I'll offer the explanations, and then we get done. I hope that is okay. Let me read the chart. The name is Global. Hey, thank you. So question 1, please, I'm begging you. I'm not demanding, I'm begging. If you need PDU, this is the opportunity for you to scan this right now and send me your first name, your last name, and your PMI ID. The moment I don't get the names together, it messes my schedule. When you send it, I'll compile it and do it tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. So when you send your name, 24 hours, Abiko. Now I beg. Thank you for your understanding. Question 1, during a stakeholder engagement, you realize your weekly reports are not being read. What should you do? A, send a reminder email. B, continue sending reports as documented in the plan. C, meet the stakeholder to discuss their preferred communication format. D, escalate to the sponsor. Now, drop your answers in the chat box. And for those that are on TikTok, you can also drop your answer. Oh, Julius is on fire. Okay. What's the answer? Okay, good. Let me spy on the answer before. I see C. Okay. I probably did a good job. Let me clap for you and myself. All right, second question. Which communication method is most suitable when you need to resolve a conflict between functional managers? Push, pull, interactive, written report. What is the answer? Okay. Okay. I think the questions are too simple, eh? Let me clap for you again. Question 3. During a project review meeting, you realize that several key stakeholders have misunderstood the project's progress because they relied on a monthly report rather than attending your weekly briefings. What should you do first? A, schedule a meeting to clarify the misunderstanding and realign expectations. B, send an updated report summarizing all progress since the last meeting. C, remind stakeholders to read the reports more carefully. D, escalate the issue to the sponsor. Good job, Julius. Good job, King Abdusalam. And welcome, Bernardo. Okay, so I see A, I see B on TikTok. What do I see here? I see A. Is this C for remind the stakeholders to read, or the C is for period? Yes, when there's misunderstanding, I thought this misunderstood would have helped. When there's misunderstanding, you use interactive to resolve, to understand. This is also one of the mistakes we make when we are answering questions. We assume we know the problem and then we prefer solution. Look at the options carefully. If there's any option that is talking about clarifying, evaluating, assessing, so that you can understand the challenge well, pick that option. That option is, let me change that. Such option is usually most of the time, because there could be other situations that may make it wrong. But often you need to analyze, examine, research to understand. And scheduling a meeting to clarify the misunderstanding would help you. Maybe your mode of report presentation is not suitable for them, or you write what you are writing, they don't understand the format, they don't understand, or the timing. So when you meet with them, you would be able to understand from their perspective. And the question also said, what do you do first? Thank you. Thank you. When there's confusion, switch to interactive communication first, because it gives you opportunity to verify, clarify, and all that. Question 4. Your communication plan specifies weekly updates via email to all stakeholders. After 3 months, you discover that most recipients are not opening the emails. What should you do next? A, continue as planned. At least you send the information. You cannot come and kill yourself. B, stop sending the updates since stakeholders are not interested. They are uninterested. You cannot be wasting your time. C, meet stakeholders to determine preferred communication channels. Like, seriously. D, escalate the issue to the PMO so that I can come and talk to them. I'm the one adding that, so just look at the options and answer. All right, on TikTok, I see. On Zoom, what do I see? We should be having more answers than this. So see. Okay, meet stakeholders to determine preferred communication channels. Don't assume what you are using is what they prefer. Please, if you're already certified and you need PDUs, professional development units, please scan this and send me your first name, last name, and PMI ID. And if you need more PDUs, you can watch and prove to me that you have watched, and I can assign previous PDUs to you as well. Question 5. You need to share sensitive project financial data with the steering committee. The information is confidential and requires discussion. Which communication method is most appropriate? A, post the report in the shared project repository. B, email the report with restricted access. C, print copies and send via courier. D, discuss the data during a virtual meeting with authorized members. Yes. If you're on TikTok and you're yet to be following me, please do follow me. Give me some likes. Yeah, I see 6 responses. Should I wait for more before I open? Okay, because of time. I see okay, I see B. I see D. I'm curious. Can I get 2 people? One person who chose D and one person who chose B to give me the rationale behind their choice of answers. Yes, Kishiwura Ola.
Good evening, Ma. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us. It's really very helpful. Thank you so much, Ma. I would say I chose D because of the fact that it requires discussion. So if we would discuss the data, then it would require that we have a meeting about it in the first place. So instead of just emailing the report with restricted access or printing copies and all of that, discussing the data during a virtual meeting where we could just present it, show them all the visuals, and have a proper detailed conversation around it seems like the best answer to go for.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have a B. Is the B willing to tell us?
Hello, Jimmy. Good evening and good evening, everyone. I think I chose B because I saw the restricted, but when I read the D carefully, when I realized I realized that it should have been D. So please, I have changed my answer to D.
Okay, that's okay. That brings me to another point that I usually tell my students when I'm having the exam prep with them. Make sure you read all 4 options, A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Answer. And also read the question from beginning to end. Sometimes the opening part of the question is not relevant to the question. Sometimes it may be relevant. Sometimes in between information is not relevant, but read all. So when I'm reading, I go like, you need to share sensitive projects, financial this with the steering committee. The information is confidential, okay, and requires discussion. All right. The fact that it requires discussion, if you post the report, how will you discuss it? You probably thought, and when I post it, then afterwards we will meet. But there's nothing here that says whether you have that time or you don't have that time. Okay. And usually, steering committee, they are like the governing body for the project. They don't have time. So for you to now post, then they will read, or you email the report for them to read, and then print copies for them to no. The best one that is pointing to interactive is the option D. So let me clap for all of you, because eventually the person who chose B changed her mind, and it's okay to change your mind. The beauty of the PMP exam is when you answer a question and you are not very sure, instead of you wasting time, mark it and proceed. When you finish, unless you spend all your time, it will prompt you that you have marked questions, and then you can look at it, because now you are finished, maybe a little bit relaxed than beginning of the exam. So D is the answer. Question 6. A team member writes an angry email to a vendor over delayed deliverables and copies the entire project team. What should you do as a project manager? You have to think as a leader here. A, ignore it. It's between the team member and vendor. B, ask the vendor to respond professionally. C, speak privately with the team member to coach appropriate tone and communication behavior. D, forward the email to the functional manager for disciplinary action. Oh, don't have time. Yes, what's the answer? Akfuku, thanks for joining. So for those that are on TikTok, when I finish with the live on Zoom, I will spend some time with you to answer questions that you may have. So you may want to stay for some engagement afterwards. Okay. Let me check. See. All right, speak privately with the team member to coach appropriate tone. That's what you are there for as a leader. And question 7, the last but not the least, midway through the project, a senior stakeholder complains that they are receiving too many updates and can't keep up. What should you do? How can they, every time you are sending mail? A, reduce all communication frequency for all stakeholders. B, revisit the communication plan and tailor updates per stakeholder needs. C, ask the stakeholder to ignore irrelevant updates. If the updates comes and you don't want to, just ignore it now. D, forward updates only when there are issues. So you stop sending, oh, I'm trying to interpret the option. So let's have your answers. Okay, on TikTok, I see B, C. Here, what do we see? I see C. I see B. B. Okay, so the CCC were for the previous question. Can someone tell me the rationale behind choosing B? The answer is B anyway. Hey, Wura Ola. Okay, you can talk.
Thank you so much. So I would say B because in stakeholder communication management, it is very clear that not every stakeholder are going to require the same method of being updated. There are those that even might not necessarily be updated with the same level of frequency that others have been updated. So there should have been a proper stakeholder arrangement where you understand those that possibly will be needing consistent updates and keeping them in the loop and all of that, or those that just need to be kept informed. So this stakeholder person, this senior stakeholder, it might be that they don't want to necessarily be informed on a consistent note-to-note basis of everything that is happening, or better still, they would require another means of communication instead of the frequent emails or anything that is being sent. But again, it just shows that there needs to be a way to go back to the communication plan and tailor that updates based on that particular stakeholder needs.
I guess I have a TA in Wuraola. Thank you very much. What you should pay attention to midway through the project. So probably the frequency of the communication might have been agreed upon at the beginning, but as the project progresses, the stakeholder felt, I don't need this much updates anymore. You know, I can't read everything. So you need to meet with that stakeholder to revisit the frequency, because it's a senior stakeholder, probably the sponsor or something. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. I'm using the opportunity to advertise the PMP training that we have scheduled that is starting on 18th October. It's usually 8 Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is for people that have not done their 35-hour training. And then this is for people who have done their 35-hour training and they left it, life happened, and they didn't write the exam, or they wrote the exam, but they didn't do well. Like when I wrote my first exam in 2011. Anyway, I passed that same 2011, but it was a terrible experience. And I think because I've gone through that experience, it helps me know how to talk to people, because I know how it feels. You can be discouraged. You may not even want to write the exam again. But when you start something, you should end it, you know. And so that is it for, so those are the two virtual sessions that I have. And you may want to link up with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube as Jumoke Lafenwa. That is my personal page. And then for my company, it's Okin Value Limited on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Okin is actually a Yoruba name for peacock. And this company was registered in 2010 in the memory of my late dad. Okay, the peacock is a symbol of his hometown, and it has lots of virtues. And so, because sometimes people say okay, okay, so it's okay, and it stands for peacock. And I'm also on TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok. I tell people my age mates are not creating content on TikTok. They are just laughing, but I want to have fun and also create content, project management wise. So I'm there as Jumoke Lafenwa, and recently I also opened a page for Okin Value so that I can fool as I want on my page and then do the serious things on Okin Value. So one of the ways you can support me is to follow my company's handle on all these social media, and God bless you. Now is the time for questions. If you have any question that I have not addressed in the